My name is Sheik, and this is my reflection video after completing the 7-video YouTube challenge by Ali Abdaal. So in this video, I'm meant to reflect a little bit about my journey and answer a few prompts. So here we go. My first prompt is, what were my expectations of what the journey would be like compared to how I see it right now? One thing is that initially with the journey, I thought that it would be a lot more harder to make a video, record it and edit it than it actually was. I think I realized that when it comes to YouTube or creating your own content, you don't need to copy everyone else who spends 10-20 hours editing a video. You can just do things your way and make it a minimally edited video and just speak freely like I am right now. Don't really have a script. I'm just talking off the top of my head, perhaps off a few key points that I want to make, and getting to this point where I realized, okay, it can involve a lot less prep than I initially thought it would. It makes it a lot easier to overcome that initial hurdle, which is feeling motivated to make a video. The next thing is that before starting this challenge, I really saw YouTube as a big deal, a lot more serious of a platform than other platforms like Instagram, X, Facebook, any other meta platform. And I think that's partly because I just consumed a lot of YouTube content, and the kind of content I saw on YouTube I found a lot more useful, a lot more entertaining, a lot more interesting. And so when it comes to creators on YouTube as well, I kind of see them that same way. So the thought of being that person who puts himself out there on YouTube, I kind of associated that fear with it. But yeah, honestly, now that I've made a couple of videos, I think I still kind of feel the same way, in the sense that I do take YouTube as a platform a lot more seriously than I do platforms like Instagram or X or Threads, whatever. Yeah, so that really hasn't changed. The next thing is that before starting this challenge, I knew that I really did want to give YouTube a go. And after finishing this challenge, I think I've affirmed that, because I still feel the same way. I think YouTube as a platform could potentially be more me and my style, to speak a bit more long form, rather than be the guy that comes up with 30-second reels. I did that, I tried that, and I felt like it just consumed a lot of my energy, trying to condense things. But I guess condensing things is a skill in itself. And the very last thing is, before starting this challenge, I thought I was, or no, I didn't think I was, but I was quite nervous, excited. And after finishing the challenge, I'm still quite nervous, excited, which I think is a good thing, because it means that I'm growing, like I'm doing something that will help me grow, and I'm doing something that excites me. Prompt number 2 is, what are the challenges I faced and how did I overcome them? Well, the first challenge is that very regularly over the last few months, I would find myself constantly coming up with excuses and delaying getting started on a video, because I kept convincing myself that everything needed to be perfect. The moment needed to be perfect for me to start working on the video. By that moment, I mean, the house would need to be clean, I'd need to have a shower, I'd need to have a good sleep, all these other tasks would need to be done, I need to fully write a script or something like that. Just excuses to delay starting. I overcame that by just realizing I needed to just rip the band-aid off and learning from others who have gone down the YouTube and content creation path, particularly where they say you gotta just do it, even if it's not perfect, especially when you're not ready, because that's gonna help you grow so much more. A particular quote I like is, "Done is better than perfect," and that's something that I'm trying to go about now. Like right now, it's about 11:30 p.m. Very, very underslept with a 3-week-old baby. Baby's just sleeping now, so I thought I'd just squeeze this in. I was internally trying to justify it in my head, like it's 11:30 p.m, screw it, I'll just sleep, I'll chill out, watch YouTube. But I know that the reality is same time tomorrow, something else is gonna come up and I'm gonna delay it again. I didn't feel like doing it as well because, you know, the house was a mess, but I managed to just clean up this little setup here, but behind the camera, everything is a mess. Baby life, it is what it is. But yeah, that's something I've overcome. The next challenge I've come across was, I guess, another excuse in a way, because it motivated me to delay creating the video, and it's the fact that I always wanted to write a script and just read off the script, because I was, and honestly still am, quite nervous about speaking impromptu. But I realized that by sticking to a script, it took away some freedom from me to be my authentic self in front of the camera. And to me, that's the whole point of doing this. I only want to do this because I believe I've got something worthwhile to someone, to just put my real self out there. And the best way to do that is by just talking completely not off a script, and yeah, just being myself. So this video is without a script, and honestly it feels pretty good doing that. And the other really cool thing about going about YouTube without reading a script is that it feels a lot more effortless, which is, I think, important for sustainability, especially if you're someone with a family, someone with a full-time job. You want to minimize the amount of friction that you have when it comes to, you know, doing stuff on the side that might feel like work. Last challenge that I've come across was, you know, with consuming a lot of YouTube content, you end up seeing a lot of videos from other people who may be creating content that is kind of similar to what you want to create. But the problem with watching too much of that is that by watching so many of other people's stuff, you might find yourself naturally mimicking them or comparing the ideas you have or the content that you want to put out there to what they're putting out there, and that might kill your creativity a bit. So one way I've overcome that is I've significantly limited the amount of content I consume from people who I think fall into a similar category to what I am or what I want to be. And I think that's a good thing, because at least now when I try to create stuff, I know that it's mainly coming from me, and it's something, yeah, it's something that's just me. The next prompt is, what was your favorite video to make during the challenge and why? My favorite video was the From Engineer to New Dad video, just because I feel like out of all of the videos I've made so far, it was probably the most authentic into, I guess, letting the world into my actual life as to what it currently is, with the fact that I've got a baby now and I'm learning how to, I guess, be a parent and manage things, being a more sleep deprived version of myself. I like that video because for the most part I spoke unscripted and I just let myself be me. I tried to speak to the camera as if I'm, like speaking to a friend. Uh, as I'm consuming more content from other people like Ali Abdaal, I'm learning that speaking to the camera like you're speaking to a friend is a very important thing to imagine when it comes to YouTube, because it helps you be a little bit more authentic or come out that way more easily. Obviously, because staring at a camera is really freaking weird, and talking to it, this isn't something I'm used to. It kind of helps framing it like that. But anyways, that's what I did in that video. So that's something I enjoyed, and I really enjoyed chucking in some B-roll of me holding my daughter and showcasing a little bit about how things are kind of different now. The next prompt is skills I've improved and want to continue improving. The first one is doing before I feel ready or before I am ready. It's that idea of getting over perfectionism and just saying screw it and giving it a go. That's essentially what I'm doing right now by speaking pretty much unscripted and just letting myself speak to the camera. I think the more that I practice doing that, especially when it comes to YouTube, it's going to naturally become more of the norm in my own personal life, which is something I do really want. Throughout life, I've always been that kind of person who has delayed getting started by just playing something up really big in my head, making that first step seem huge, and because of that, overwhelming myself, wanting to get things perfect, but then delaying getting started is just, it's such a waste, because you might find that when you take your first step, things are not as crazy as you thought, and things may not be as they seem, so you pivot and you take a different direction, but you won't know that unless you get started. But anyways, that's something I want to keep working on. The next thing that I want to improve is my ability to speak impromptu, like confidently, and really have faith in the things that I say. And I know a lot of people say you should think before you talk, but I'd also love to get to the point where I feel so confident in my ability, in the words that come out of my mouth, that I can just talk before I think, without sounding like a fool. I think that's a skill that can only be built by really practicing speaking impromptu. I think it is a skill, not something I got really taught in school, in university, at any point in my life, really, which is interesting. I think it's an important life skill to have, but yes, that's something I want to work on. And one of the reasons I really love the idea of getting on YouTube is I think YouTube offers me that avenue to actually practice that. I know speaking to a camera is not the same as speaking to someone in person, but hey, practice is practice. I do believe that the more I practice on YouTube, that it will have flow-on effects for in-person conversations. The next skill kind of falls in line with that idea of being more comfortable and confident with speaking impromptu, and it's that idea of being comfortable with allowing for silences and gaps in my speaking and sentences, and replacing words like and with silences instead of using those filler words, because I think when you're okay with silence, and when you put out silence when you're delivering a speech, or when you're just speaking to someone, it shows them that you're comfortable with taking your time to think about what you want to say. I know this might be kind of contrary, because earlier I said I also want to work on speaking before I think. Anyways, I think both are important, but silence is good. Silence makes a big difference to the way in which people receive the message you're trying to put out there. It's one thing to deliver a message, but was that message even received? Silence just creates this feeling in people that, like, oh my god, like, what are they about to say? creates this kind of shock factor. Not that you want to create that shock factor always, but it's like it does have a significant impact, I believe, on the way people interpret your message, especially when instead of silence, you're just filling it in with lots of ahs and ums. But yeah, those are the things that I want to continue working on. Next prompt is what my plans are for my YouTube channel going forward. I initially thought that I wanted my YouTube channel to be aligned with my newsletter, which is called Built to Wonder, which is all about tapping into my curiosities about the built environment and infrastructure development. While I still do like the idea of that, I've realized through going through this challenge that I want YouTube for me to be, or to feel, a lot more effortless and frictionless. I want it to feel a lot more natural, and for me, what feels the most natural is personal growth and development, and just freely talking about whatever I want to talk about, or freely sharing my thoughts on anything. So I don't want to make this channel about infrastructure or anything in particular. While I may touch on that, I'd love to instead make it about, I'm someone who loves learning. I love reading. I love to make it about, sharing, things that I've learned, sharing my journey to grow a particular skill or pick up on particular knowledge, and creating the kind of community where people who also love learning and working on their personal development, really want to come together. I want to push people. I want to create the kind of environment where people get motivated to partake in those sorts of activities of like personal growth. And talking about infrastructure is part of that too. But yeah, this to me is a lot more of an effortless avenue, and I think it opens me up to, I guess, a lot more creativity. And with now being a new dad and having a young family, life is definitely going to get busy, and I want YouTube to be something that I genuinely look forward to, something that enables me to really be myself and feels more effortless than effortful. I know it's going to take a lot of effort, but yeah, I do want it to be enjoyable, and yeah, this is what I'm thinking of for my YouTube channel. But anyways, that's it from me. That was my reflection, or these were my reflections on the 7 video challenge. I just want to take a moment to thank Ali Abdaal. Ali, I've viewed so much of your content. You've been the kind of figure that's really made me believe it is possible to do something interesting outside of your 9 to 5, where you create something for others. It's not really about the idea of making money, while making money on the side through creating content would be good, and like creating courses and whatever. For me, this is about bringing more meaning and fun into my life. I believe I've got something of value to share with the world. My personal experiences, my journey, being a migrant in Australia, being someone who's gone through the education system and worked really, really hard. I think I've got interesting perspectives, and you've empowered me to put myself out there. So thank you for that. Thanks for tuning in.